Hey, are you hungry? Well, you're in luck. Meat and Three is back for season 16. I'm Taylor Early, and we've got a whole new batch of reporters I am so excited to introduce you to.
Hi, there. I'm Elizabeth Fisher.
Asha McElroy.
Sam Girardi.
Jessica Gingrich.
Hannah from Wisconsin.
I'm a swing dancing audio engineer.
I am a future registered dietitian nutritionist.
I'm from New York, and I love rice and beans.
My favorite food of all time is a shrimp burrito.
I love watermelon.
We've also got a bonus podcast for you called Behind the Internship. 3 of our reporters will take you along to show how they developed stories for this very show, Meat and Three.
Hi, I'm Danielle Flitter, a plant-based chef from Philadelphia, living in Mexico City.
I'm Sophia Hooper. I'm a bartender based in Portland, Maine.
My name is Addison Austin Liu. I am a chef and food journalist from Salt Lake City, Utah, and my favorite food is Peruvian.
Rice and beans.
Hand-drawn noodle soup.
So tune in to enjoy a square meal for your ears. And I hope you saved a little room for dessert. You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Well, hello. Welcome to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Sherry Bayer, and it is Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024, and this is our 383rd episode of this series, which is dedicated to behind-the-scenes talent in the hospitality industry. Today, I have a special interview that I did back at the end of 2023 when I was visiting London, and it's with an outstanding chef who is not only a contributor to my ChefWise book, but he has his own book by the same publisher, Fiden, and an amazing restaurant that I went to, and I will tell you all about that as we get into this show. But first, as I do in every show, I will start out with my PR tip, and then later we will have my interview, which includes a speed round, and I have some industry news, and I will close out with my solo dining experience. As the founder of Bayer Public Relations, I'm going to tip the show off with my PR tip of the week. So today's tip is to be hungry for knowledge. Yes, have a thirst to learn and to understand how and why things work. And simply put, why things are the way they are. Observing and taking in information is not only important to our growth and development, but it can serve as inspiration, motivating us to try new things and take risks and excel. Whether we are naturally born with drive and instinct to learn is one thing, but we can all strive to get educated and absorb all life has to offer. So yes, let's be like sponges and soak in life, as knowledge wins, always. That's my tip today. Okay, so I'm super excited to share my interview with you today, which is with Jeremy Chan. He's the chef and co-founder of Ikoyi restaurant, which he opened with his best friend, Eri Hassan Odukal, in 2017 in London. Ikoyi earned its second Michelin star in 2020 and was named the one to watch by the world's 50 best restaurants in 2021. And then more recently, it earned the number 35 spot on the world's 50 best restaurants list in 2023. And I was there in Valencia when this award was given out last June, and that is when I first met Jeremy in person. It was very special. So Ikoyi is known for its original flavor-driven cuisine inspired by Jeremy's childhood in Hong Kong. Jeremy's book Ikoyi was published by Fiden in spring 2023, and he is also a contributor to my new book ChefWise, which was released at the same time, also by Fiden. So in this interview today, I sit down with Jeremy when I was in London. We did this interview the afternoon after I had an extraordinary solo dining experience at his restaurant, which I will share later in the show, all about that. And we chatted a bit about his background and his career, and it was really lovely to spend time with him and get to know him. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Jeremy as much as I did. So here you go, my interview with Jeremy Chan of Ikoyi restaurant in London. It looks very nice in here. It's very cozy. And it's a very cold, wet day outside. And it's very comforting coming in here because I was just running around and feeling chills. And I'm here and I feel very comfortable. And it's like home. It's like coming home. So I'm a regular here now. So how are you?
Very good.
So before we get into my fantastic dinner last night, which was really a thrill to be here and lived beyond all expectations, it was really outstanding. I always like to start out when I talk to people and find out how they got into the industry. So you want to take us back a little bit into where you grew up and what drew you into becoming a chef?
I grew up in Hong Kong. My mum's Canadian, my dad's Chinese, and spent the first 8 years of my life in Hong Kong. Those are probably some of the best years of my life, just because my family was all together and we ate incredible food. We spent a lot of time together as a family. I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of people from all over the world in my preschool. I think that had a big effect on me. I remember in my class I had Australians, Norwegians, Indians, Pakistani, Japanese, and I think being around many different cultures in Hong Kong give me a sense of like the world being this kind of nomadic place from a very early age. Then I moved to England and then spent the rest of my adolescent years in the UK and some part in the US. I started cooking when I was 26, 10 years ago. I fell in love with cooking. I always cooked, actually. I remember cooking my first thing when I was 7 years old. I was always interested in the experimentation of cooking and the expression of combining things and not knowing what's to come. I remember really early on making concoctions of different things I found and serving them to people. So I think it's always been an instinct to produce new flavors. But really started cooking seriously when I was living in Spain. I kind of decided that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't working in cooking. I had an academic background and then always very into research and writing and understanding concepts. I think that's something that I'm truly passionate about, is studying concepts, studying people, studying behavior, analyzing cultural trends, analyzing philosophical trends, and trying to grasp the meaning of life. That's always been something very kind of true to my heart, and so I think cooking really fills the gap with that kind of mindset, because there's so much to grapple with, and I'm also a very physical person. I really have a lot of energy and a lot of intensity, and cooking was the only job that I could think of that combines the love of analysing culture and people and behaviour and art and aesthetics and food. You know, cooking was the only way to combine that with a very energetic kind of spirit. And so yeah, I've read a lot of books, savagely read a lot of books when I was in my 20s, and convinced myself that I could be the next Alain Ducasse. And I'd never cooked before in a kitchen, but after I'd read the books, I had so much self-belief because of the knowledge that I'd accumulated, and I remembered everything that I'd read. So I'd read many, many cookbooks, and I remembered every single recipe. I remember all the techniques, and they're all in my head. So at the time, I was like, I've ingested this knowledge, and the knowledge is still inside. So doesn't that make me like powerful in a way? I had this idea, and then I started going into restaurants, and I realized that I was completely disillusioned by my reading, and that actually the kitchen life, very early start, very long days, very monotonous, like brutal environment with not a lot of creature comforts, you know, uncomfortable clothing, like loud, brusque noises, and just is not a very like comfortable place to be. It was a very big shock. And then, but then slowly I started to like it, and I fell in love with it. And so it took me a few years. I worked in a few restaurants. I didn't have a lot of success. I never rose above commis chef, which is the lowest ranking chef you can be, because I was always that guy with very little experience and a lot of knowledge, but no one really knew the knowledge that I had because I didn't speak unless I was spoken to. So I was like someone quiet in the kitchen, doing what he was told, with a wealth of knowledge, but I would never tell anyone what I knew. I would just listen and ask questions. So yeah, I ended up not very successful in working in restaurants.
What were some of the restaurants you worked at, or is there any place, anyone you would consider a mentor, or really it was just self-education?
A mentor is something that would never sit well with me because I'm very individual and very like headstrong, and I know exactly what I want, and I do want to do it my way, and I've never been able to work for anyone. That's why I never lasted very long in kitchens. Only 2 weeks in one restaurant, and stage for 2 months in one place, and worked 6-7 months in another place. And for me, it was like also working in a kitchen. Once you understand and you analyze all the recipes and systems, even if you're low ranked, it's a weird place to be where you understand how the whole system functions, but you're an extremely low ranked person. And you just have to continue with monotonous work. That's the sort of rite of passage that I wasn't comfortable with. That's why I never stayed. And then I quit cooking, and I never wanted to do it again. And then my best friend asked me if I wanted to open this restaurant. And then when I opened it, I still didn't really know how to cook very well, but at least for the first time I could exercise my own ideas and start to fashion some kind of system for my own restaurant. So yeah, we opened the restaurant, and I'd say only in the last 3 years have I really learned how to cook properly. So 7 years after starting. And now, in my 7th year of Ikoyi, I have a lot to learn. I still know very little. And like, I feel like we're cooking sublime food in a way, but it could still be a lot better.
Wow, amazing. Well, so many things you said there, but I can relate a little bit to the being independent or doing your own thing. I had a lot of jobs in my 20s, and I started my own PR company in 2003. And once I hit the 3-year mark, I was like, okay, this is the right fit, me working for myself. And I've been working for myself since. So I can relate, but knowing where you are today and the path you've taken is very impressive. So the idea to open your own restaurant really came from your best friend, Ikoyi?
Yeah.
Okay. Before that, you're very headstrong. You weren't 10 years before that being like, one day I want to open my own restaurant. You did say you wanted to be like Alain Ducasse. So
I didn't say I wanted to be like Alain Ducasse. I said,
or you could achieve as much.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that I could like achieve that level of like greatness because I had such, and I don't mean that, I don't want that to come across as arrogant, because I had such an uncontrollable amount of passion and like ferocious hunger for knowledge that I just knew that I would be able to. It was like, it wasn't me, there was something in me that was like telling me that you can do this just by reading these books and literally like devouring this knowledge like a maniac. I didn't even have to try hard to devour it. I just opened my eyes and opened the book and literally read it, and it would just stick with me. It was a sponge. It was a sponge because I was so crazy about it that I was like, wow, this is a really powerful thing to have, this kind of crazy energy. I found something that I really know. So yeah, and then I think like there were all these ideas, even though I'd never cooked before. I had so many ideas and so many opinions and interpretations of the things that I was reading. And I think like coming from an academic analytical background, I think that really gave me some kind of like strength in this field, in the way to like interpret recipes, interpret information, interpret where these recipes come from and why, and what the intentions are between the chefs that are considered great? Like, what are their intentions? What are their personal intentions? What are their work intentions? What are the, what kind of image are they trying to create about themselves vis-a-vis these recipes and their restaurants? And that interests me as well, not just the recipes, the chef, but what are their life intentions and how do their life goals shape their creativity? And like, do they have integrity? And like seeing through recipes and restaurants and trying to identify who has integrity and who doesn't, who's an artist and who's a businessman. I think that's also interesting to me.
So you opened Ikoyi in 2017 in a different location than we are now. What does the name mean? And talk a little about like the style cuisine you were doing, how it's like developed. Because from what I've understand or read, a lot of it was initially at least based on West African cuisine or flavors a little bit from Erie, but I don't know how much influence that was. I'll let you explain.
Well, when we opened the restaurant, again, like this comes down to like my personality. Like, I think if someone was paying me to kind of consult on a project and like interpret West African cuisine and come up with a menu, and that was like an anonymous exercise, that's maybe how the restaurant initially started. It was my friend asking me to like help him. It wasn't my friend asking me to open my soul and like pull something deep from within. So, but it started that way as like, and then I think we both realized that it wasn't going to work because I'm not from there. I don't have experience of that culture, and to do it just it seemed a bit disingenuous for me to be the one to do West African cuisine. And so we thought, okay, well, what do we want to do? Like, what kind of business do we want to have? What kind of people do we want to be? And I was like, why don't we just make really good food and like combine what do we like to eat? And like, let's just think about what we like to eat. And like, these flavors are amazing. Your culinary heritage is amazing. I've had so many experiences growing up in, different cultures. Why don't we just go back to the drawing board and let's write something simple down. Let's cook what we think is like pure and delicious food. And then that's how it ended up being Ikoyi. It was like going back to the idea of what brings us joy. Rice, chilies, peppercorns, beautiful cuts of meat, seasonal vegetables, spices, acidity, bright colors, intensity, aesthetics, joyful, like painful flavors and combinations of ingredients. Like those were the kind of things that came to mind. And why can't we do all that without a name? Why can't we just do it within its own genre? A genre that's driven by intuition and like, feelings rather than pre-existing ideas. So that's what people find very difficult to comprehend, is like every cuisine is always within a genre. It's always driven towards a pre-existing idea or tradition. What we've been doing is creating our own tradition. If you were to an anthropologist was to look at this restaurant in the future, they'd see like Ikoyi restaurant as a phenomenon of global, trends, and not global trends, that's not the word, but I guess very complex cultural contamination and collaboration and intermingling of cultures. And it's almost Ikoyi is because it doesn't really think about culture, it allows cultures to blend very naturally, very kind of harmoniously. The food, everything. I feel like that's a utopian idea of the future, this idea that there are no borders or boundaries between anyone. We all speak many different languages, but we can still communicate with each other, understand each other, and just freely intermingle. And there's no protectiveness on our own culture or religion or anything. It's just this free-for-all. That's what Ikoyi is about.
And the name particularly means... Is there a meaning?
It means nothing to me.
Okay.
The meaning of Ikoyi.
I wasn't sure.
The word. The meaning of the restaurant is everything that we create within it and what it looks like. And it's just a word for a home and a place that we have distributed to a restaurant. But it's named after my friend Ire's birthplace in Nigeria, but it doesn't really have like any specific significant connection to that place. It's just we like the name, and we think it has the meaning of the restaurant. The work that we've done is associated with that word now. I think so the meaning of Ikoyi is constantly changing, evolving into what we've put into it. It's like a person. Yeah.
So you received a Michelin star and then you received 2. How did that change things? And how important are accolades? I recently saw you in Valencia for World's 50 Best, and you're named the number 35 spot. I mean, it's huge. The accolades you've received. Talk a little about that. Was it a goal? Does it matter?
It does matter because we live in the real world. And, I think like every industry, there have to be markers of success and milestones for people to reach for. I think like that's what drives economies, that's what drives competition, that's what drives ambition, that's what drives standards. And so in a way, like I think markers, symbols of success are important for individuals to push themselves and raise the standard. I think if there's no standards, there's no markers, then we don't really know where we are in the spectrum. However, having said that, it's taken with a pinch of salt, and I think you can still be an individual, have integrity, don't answer to anyone else, but you don't answer to the accolades. You answer to your customers, you answer to your integrity, you answer to creativity. It doesn't mean you don't respect the accolades still. The accolade is just, it's an award, it's something, it's a pat on the back, and it's a mark of recognition for your customers so that they can find you. The thing that I think is difficult now is that there are so many markers, there are so many accolades, that it starts to dilute the special quality of an accolade when it becomes part of this marketing, PR, megalomaniac system, and it encourages like lobbying. It encourages unfair competition, because you could be the most unbelievable restaurant with 10 covers. How are you going to compete with a restaurant with a big budget for marketing that can lobby voters or press trips for people to come over and eat? You can get all the people to come over and eat in your restaurant and afford that and then be high up on a list. How does that compete? How can a restaurant that doesn't do that compete? That focuses on sourcing great ingredients rather than flying in journalists. So I think that's the downside to an accolade system, is like the unfairness of the competition.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't think all accolade systems are like that, but I think like many are, and I think like that. I think that's that, but that's also the nature of the world. That's part of the real world, is that it is unfair. Life is unfair, and you have to accept that. So I accept it.
What led you to move locations?
I was invited to move into this new location.
Okay.
By the landlord here. And I think we'd outgrown the last space. We had a really great time in the last space. We're very fortunate to be working with the previous landlord, who very generously gave us this incredible location. But we'd really outgrown it. It was very, very small. And we wanted to achieve new things and express the restaurant in a more serious way, in a more mature way. It kind of felt like we were living in a small dormitory, and I was sharing, it felt like as a chef I was sharing my kitchen with too many people, and I wasn't a grown-up. I felt like a kid in that space, and that couldn't really be taken seriously. It was very difficult to be taken seriously there because of how small it was. We couldn't give the customers, the most respectful experience because of the size. I felt bad cramping them in.
Yeah. Well, this space is so beautiful, and I loved my dinner last night. I don't think there isn't a bad seat in the house, but I would say I had the best seat right up front, looking at your beautiful open kitchen and watching your team, which seemed to move so seamlessly and quietly and efficiently. And I love the interaction with your team and coming out and learning about all the dishes I was having and the amazing tea pairing, which was really outstanding. I was kind of in awe how the teas matched or paired so wonderfully with your food. So how would you describe the menu that I had last night? Because, as you said, your cuisine is certainly not black and white definition.
The menu that you had last night is the maximum output that I can give at this moment in time to my guests. Like it's the maximum output of my kind of interpretation of what my producers and suppliers have on offer, and trying to create, like it's like a living patchwork of everything that is in season at the moment. And I'm trying to blend and balance what is best on offer and what is the most prized things that one can eat in this given moment. And I'm trying to seize that. This restaurant is about seizing the day. It's about seizing what's available now. What can I do in a small restaurant in London? What's the best that I can do and give that to my guests? And how can I best express myself through those dishes? So it's on the one hand, the menu is about really understanding seasonality and giving the most that we can give with seasonality, and it's also about giving the most of ourselves and most personal feeling to those ingredients. So it's two things. It's extremely personal. It's extremely individual. It's extremely unique. It doesn't answer to anyone. None of the menu interprets anything from anywhere else. It's all our feelings towards these very special, close relationships that we have with suppliers. So that's how I describe the menu.
Well, it was a fantastic tasting menu, and I loved how the food was so flavorful, but there was also surprises, being that the dish, I don't know if you call it a signature dish, but you're known a bit for your rice dish, with having some spice or some heat to it, or unexpected sort of tingling or some surprise flavors, which were really, it was delightful. And I mean, flavors I've had before, but also different combinations, and obviously the ingredients you're using and the technique is pretty amazing and impressive. How do you conceptualize dishes? Is this something that you wake up in the middle of the night and you think of a dish? I mean, what's your process a little bit?
My process is very, I have a very open and free mind, and I think in many different disciplines. I don't just think about cooking. I think about colors, I think about textures, I think about feelings, and I think about what do people like to eat, what have people not eaten. How can I reinterpret something that's been cooked before, but do it in my own way, in a new way? I think about humor as well. I think about how I can inject some humor into my dishes sometimes, even if it's my own humor, even if it's something that just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about cultural authenticity, and there's a lot of protectiveness over different cuisines. So sometimes I'll make a traditional dish from a specific culture, and I'll hide it within my dish as a reference, but I won't tell anyone where it's coming from. So people get very upset because of cultural appropriation. So sometimes I'll embed cultural appropriation into my dishes, but no one will know where they come from. And I like to do that because I think it's my own thing, and I think it's not really cultural appropriation because I'm not claiming it to be the original thing, but I don't know, there's a lot of different ways that you can be creative, but I think on the bottom line, I think it's really about seasonality. I start always with seasonality. I start with what are the most pristine ingredients that I can serve, what is special, what will make people feel really special in this moment in time, what's something people haven't had before. But I'm also looking for things that inspire me. I'm not looking for just the same old thing. I'm always looking for something that is new to me. So I always want to make something that's new to me, not just for the guest. I'll never make something that I've seen before. It always has to be fresh and like evolving. So I never taste my dishes. I never test dishes. I always just make them, because part of the process for me is to make things that I'm excited about. So those are the kind of overriding feelings and kind of ideas connected with how I cook. But then, how do I conceptualize a dish? It always goes back to basics. Cabbage, potatoes, I'll just start with that. I don't...
Chocolate,
exactly. I just start with the simple things. Chocolate, cabbage, potatoes, carrots, leeks.
Yeah.
And then everything just explodes from there. I don't think, let's make this dish. I think very granular. I think about cabbage, and then I think about all the networks of inspiration that connect to what does cabbage mean to me? What is my relationship with cabbage? And then I literally filter through all my memories and all my interpretations, all my tasting of cabbage, and I apply all of those memories to that single way of cooking cabbage, rather than trying to create a dish that doesn't exist with random combinations of flavors. I think about the ingredients in themselves and what my relationship is to those ingredients, and look back and when have I tasted them? When have they been good? When have they been special? And then I start there.
Amazing. We have another thing in common between, we both now have books with Fiden. You're in my Chef Wise book, which I love, and you have your book, Ikoyi, which came out the same time. It came out this year, right? So how did that come about, and how long did you work on the book, and was it difficult for you to express or put your recipes into a book and share?
All the recipes had already been written and formatted, because every recipe that I write for the kitchen at Ikoyi, I've always written it with a view that the recipe would one day maybe be printed in a book. So I read cookbooks in the past, and I saw how they were formatted and edited. So I wrote every recipe that was in the kitchen for the last 6 years, since the day one, has been written with the intention of being printed. So I didn't need to write the recipes, they were already written.
I'm smiling because you're so smart. Everyone listening to the show should know. Get ahead, start working on your book before you're working on a book.
Well, I think if you're going to write a recipe for your kitchen, why not just write it? Just finish it off, write it properly and make it accurate in a way that can just be sent to a publisher. Go all the way. So there was very little editing to do on the recipes. The actual writing part, I wrote the majority of it in 3 months. I just sat down and wrote it. I planned it every single day for 3 months, what I was going to write each day. So I knew every single day what I was going to write. It took me about a week to plan the whole book, but once I'd planned it, I just smashed it out. I literally planned every single essay, every single recipe, every single idea, how I was going to structure it. I wrote the plan for the book, and then that was probably the most challenging part, is what to include, what are the feelings that I'm trying to create, what ideas are going to be behind each recipe. But then once the plan was created, there was a fixed schedule attached to that plan, so I knew when the book would be finished.
Amazing. You're amazing. I'm very inspired listening to you.
We did the photography in 5 sessions for the whole cookbook. 13 dishes each session, split over a couple of months, because Fiden had a hand-in date. So because there was a hand-in date, you can't just pick any recipe that you want to cook. And if you have integrity and you say you work with artisanal suppliers, you can't just cook any recipe for the book. So the recipes selected for the book were contingent on the availability of specific artisanal produce within the time frame that I was given to write the book, and my calculation of the likelihood of those specific ingredients getting into my hands. Do you know what I mean? Just like saying, I'm going to do the langoustine recipe, and then what if, so you want to do the langoustine recipe, when are you going to take the photo? And you have a certain time period. Are you going to be able to get that langoustine within that time period? I think when you look at some ambitious cookbooks, they must have a photographer living in situ. Because if you look at a restaurant that's remote, how do they capture these crazy dishes and produce? You must have someone able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on the specific product that you're using, how hard it is to get. I was just even thinking about how magazines are typically known for, they shoot their Thanksgiving issue in April, so they have to get turkey and do all that setup to do the spread. So sometimes people have had to work off season to get the shoot, but what you're saying makes sense to me.
Yeah, so the selection is very arbitrary.
Yeah.
So the arbitrary selection based on my kind of calculation of availability of the best things in that time frame that I was given. There would have been other things I would have loved to include in there, but I was still happy with what we included. But I don't think of it as a cookbook. To me, it's not a cookbook. It's an autobiography with photography and a technical guide to cooking and recipes. But it's more than just a cookbook. It's almost like the book is a living manifestation of how the restaurant is produced. The production of the book in itself is the same as exercise as how we cook, how we structure and organize the restaurant. I think if you read the book and you understand how it was made, I think it will give you an insight into how to be creative and how to organize yourself creatively.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, and everything you've accomplished is quite impressive. Before I let you go, though, we got to play my speed round game. This is the fun part of the show. I name a couple things and you get to pick your preference, so such as chocolate or vanilla. You want to answer that one? That's the test.
Chocolate.
All right, you're going to be fine. I would say chocolate too. Okay, so here we go. Eat in at home or eat out at a restaurant?
Eat in.
Al fresco dining or indoor dining?
Are we in London? Because then.
I was just thinking, do you even have much al fresco dining here? At least, well, it's winter time,
Probably indoor dining.
Okay. Yeah. Wine, beer, cocktail, mocktail, or champagne?
Champagne.
Tasting menu or a la carte?
A la carte.
Small plates or large plates?
Large plates.
Communal table or chef's counter?
Communal table. Neither. I don't like tasting menus either. I hate tasting menus.
You don't like tasting menus and you don't like communal table or chef's counter. You want to we're at a very cozy private table in the corner of your restaurant and you want a la carte dishes over here. Is that your go-to with champagne?
My go-to is stay at home and boil some rice and have a glass of wine, or a glass of champagne, something like that.
Okay.
I don't like going out to eat that much.
Okay. Well, that's okay because you can just be in your restaurant and let other people dine and then go home and have a cozy meal.
I think when you work this many hours in a restaurant, being in a restaurant starts to feel like work. Even interacting with other hospitality staff is like, it reminds me of being at work. It doesn't feel relaxing to me. Like having to order food is like, it's not that different from like ordering. It just like psychologically, it's all kind of related. I find it much more relaxing to cook at home and just sit and like relax.
Yeah, because you're also probably, people might know you and my social and work life are just one combination at this point, but you're also probably at other restaurants observing things or, noticing things or taking notes of stuff,
I'm actually pretty chill outside of it.
Okay. All right, wait, a few more from a game. Tipping or all-inclusive charge? It's more of a big topic in the U.S.
It's a difficult question. It depends on who's serving.
Okay.
But probably all-inclusive.
Okay.
But I still like to tip. Even if it's paid all-inclusive, it depends on the person and how what a job they've done.
Taking the tube or taking a double-decker bus?
Double-decker bus.
I was on one today. It's pretty fun to sit up top, I have to say. English or any other language?
I have to say English. I like English.
How many languages do you know? speak?
6 languages.
That's all. It's impressive. Okay, last two. Cheese plate or dessert?
Cheese plate.
Manhattan, Brooklyn, or London?
London any day.
That's the game. Thank you for playing. You win a Chef Wise hat. Okay, last thing. What's your top advice for inspiring young cooks or anyone, coming off my book? It's a book of advice. You're in there. People will have to get the book for your advice. But, what's your number one tip for someone who may want to pursue a career in this industry?
My number one tip. I think if you're a young person and you're learning to cook or you want to be in this industry, be patient, work extremely hard, and respect people that you work for, even if you don't agree with what they're doing or how they work. I think when you're working and learning, you should always respect the place that you're working. Keep your ideas to yourself and save them until you get your own place. But while you're learning and while you're working, even if you don't like something, there's always something to learn. If you're working in a place that it sucks, you can be learning a lot from the experience that's going bad for you. You can be fashioning, a way of being that's inverse to the environment that you're in. So I think keeping an open mind, being patient, working extremely hard, and being humble and respectful is the most important thing. And I think patience is important for young people because there's a lot of glory in cooking and Instagram and accolades and awards that it's really come my way, and I'm extremely lucky to have all these amazing accolades. But I think because Instagram and technology plays such a powerful role in young chefs' lives, I think it can kind of disillusion the sense of what's actually achievable, because it's still very difficult to get there and it's not going to happen overnight. So if you want all of that, you need to forget about all that and actually focus on cooking and being original and working hard, not the goal, but the actual act itself.
Amazing. I have to say, I feel really lucky to have met you, to be doing this interview, to have dined here last night, to now have this relationship. And I am I'm happy for all your success. I can't wait to see what you do next, and just big congratulations. You've achieved quite a lot in, pretty short amount of time, I think some chefs might say. So congratulations, thank you. And I hope to come back soon, but it was really a magical experience here, and you should be very proud of what you've achieved.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, are you hungry? Well, you're in luck. Meat & 3 is back for season 16. I'm Taylor Early, and we've got a whole new batch of reporters I am so excited to introduce you to.
Hi,
there.
I'm Elizabeth Fisher.
Asha McElroy.
Sam Girardi.
Jessica Gingrich.
Hannah from Wisconsin.
I'm a swing dancing audio engineer.
I am a future registered dietitian nutritionist.
I'm from New York, and I love rice and beans.
My favorite food of all time is a shrimp burrito.
I love watermelon.
We've also got a bonus podcast for you called Behind the Internship. 3 of our reporters will take you along to show how they developed stories for this very show, Meat & 3.
Hi, I'm Danielle Flitter, a plant-based chef from Philadelphia, living in Mexico City.
I'm Sophia Hooper. I'm a bartender based in Portland, Maine.
My name is Addison Austin Liu. I am a chef and food journalist from Salt Lake City, Utah, and my favorite food is Peruvian.
Rice and beans.
Hand-drawn noodle soup.
So tune in to enjoy a square meal for your ears. And I hope you saved a little room for dessert.
Welcome back to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Sherry Bayer, and my guest today is Jeremy Chan, the chef and co-founder of Ikoyi in London, England. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jeremy. It was a true treat to talk with him, to have dinner at his restaurant, and I can't wait to go back. It is such a special place. So thank you, Jeremy. It was cozy in there, as I said, and it's beautiful. I'm going to talk more about it on my solo dining experience. But I was very grateful to be there and have this opportunity to chat with him. So before we get to my solo dining experience, I have some industry news. So the Philly Chef Conference, which is now called the Chef Conference, is coming up in Philadelphia. This conference was founded by Executive Director Mike Trout, who was a guest on this show back on episode 213. And I've been involved as a speaker in the past, and I've been to this conference many a times. It's a quick, easy trip from New York City. So the conference is a little different this year than it has been in the past. This year's event includes pop-up dinners, book events, and happy hours, and it's taking place from April 12th to 15th, 2024 in Philadelphia, and this is the inaugural year of a multi-day event across different venues, and there's a really outstanding lineup of speakers involved, including Ruth Reichel with Jamila Robinson, Kristen Kish and Dana Cowan, and Phil Rosenthal and Jeff Gordonier. And there's different things happening on different days. So if you want to find out more, go to thechefconference.com or follow on Instagram at thechefconference. There's amazing programming, so check it out. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. And congratulations to Mike and the team for putting this together. I know what it takes to do a conference. So best to you, and I hope to see you there. And also another event coming up on April 14th, which is a Sunday at 11 a.m. in New York City at Platform by JBF. I'm doing a talk with iconic chef John George von Richten, who's a contributor to my ChefWise book. And we're going to have a conversation of inspiration and advice in and out of the kitchen, focusing on topics that are in the book. John George is actually in many of the chapters of ChefWise, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. And we're going to cover things in the book and maybe things not in the book. So I hope you'll join us. I'm really, really excited about it. And this is the James Beard Foundation's new event platform that launched about a year ago. And I'm really honored to be doing this event with John George. His flagship restaurant, John George, is in Columbus Circle in New York City. He also has the Tin Building at the Seaport, and he has over 60 restaurants worldwide. He was my guest on this show last year, episode 347, if you want to go back and listen to our whole interview. So tickets are $20, and they can be purchased at platformbyjbf.org. And I will be signing copies of ChefWise, also available for purchase. So come on down to Platform by JBF at Pier 57, which is on the West Side Highway around 15th Street. Thank you, James Beard Foundation, and thank you, John George. I will see you on April 14th, and should be a lot of fun. Okay, it's time for my solo dining experience. So yes, this week it's at Ikoyi. Here's the rundown. The location, 180 The Strand, London, England. The concept. Okay, I'm going to read this from Ikoyi's menu, and it says, the menu we created for you closely follows the seasons and what our producers, farmers, and fishermen bring to the table. Our spice-based cuisine is comprised of vegetables slowly grown for flavor, sustainable line-caught fish, and aged native breed beef. Our aim is to serve produce in its optimal state, harnessing as much flavor as possible while respecting the true nature of the ingredient. We are truly grateful to have your support, which allows us to do what we love. And the Michelin Guide says, the surprise tasting menu uses top quality organic produce from the British Isles, married with spices of West Africa to create dishes that are as unique and creative as they are bold and balanced. So the chef and owners, Chef Jeremy Chan and his business partner and best friend, Ari Hassan Odukal. So why did I go? Well, I've been a big fan of Jeremy's from a distance for a while now. And I was just super excited to try his menu. I had heard amazing things about it, and it was really one of the things I was looking most forward to in visiting London was going to Ikoyi. So my experience, I reached out to Jeremy to let him know I was going to be in town and looked into making a reservation for one, and then coordinated the date with him so that he would be there so he could cook for me. And he also said the day I would be coming in, there would be stunning produce in the kitchen. And so I was psyched, and my experience lived up to all expectations, or really beyond my expectations, and they were pretty high. When I arrived, I was warmly greeted and seated at a table that was right by the pass in the dining room. There really isn't a bad seat in the house, but I have to say it was the best seat and I was spoiled, so thank you. And I absolutely loved it. My experience, it just felt very special to be there. So what did I get? So it was about 14 courses, and different courses of the tasting menu were presented by different chefs, including Jeremy. Some of them were gola pepper broth, smoked sirloin, drunken squid and fermented rye, pigeon suya, turbo and egusi miso, smoked jollof rice. I'm getting into dessert, salted buttermilk baba, and verbena berry and rose. And I was lucky to do the tea pairing that they offer as one of the beverage options. And it was just extraordinary. I absolutely love the tea pairings. I believe it was curated by Toby from Jeremy's team. And the teas just matched with the food so perfectly. I was sort of in awe of it. And the whole meal blew me away. I just loved it. And my teas, there were 6 in total. A couple of them were Fuji Sensa from Shizuoka, Japan, Golden Tip Black Oolong from Chiang Rai, Thailand, and Rugu Ruyi from Fujian, China. Hope I said that right. Probably should have skipped mentioning that one. So my take, well, as I've already said, I loved it. I loved my meal. I loved the tea pairing. It was all magical. I'd say some of my favorite courses were the smoked sirloin, the pumpkin soup and seasonal ceviche, the turbo and egusi miso, and the smoked jollof rice, which Jeremy is known for that dish. And at the end, the suya ganache and all the desserts. I probably shouldn't pick favorites, like you can't name your favorite kids, but it was all wonderful. So the ambiance. So this is a new space from the original location, which I never went to, so I can't really compare, but I believe it was a tighter, smaller space. And this restaurant is just exquisite. It's pretty intimate. I think it's maybe around 30 seats, and there isn't a bad seat in the house, as I mentioned. Pretty much every table has a view of the open kitchen, and the tables are spaced out nicely, and it's very comfortable. The walls have copper, and the ceiling features a curved metal weave, and I read that the furniture is made from oak and the floor from limestone. It all works beautifully together. It's kind of like dark and sexy, and it is cozy. That's my take. Okay, it's perfect for dining solo or a date. Interesting tidbit. In addition to being featured in my Chef-Wise book, Jeremy has his own book, which I had also mentioned, that was published last year, and it's titled Ikoyi, A Journey Through Bold Heat with Recipes. Personal fun fact. So while I was in London, I will share with you some of the other restaurants I went to. I checked out several of the spots of some other chef-wise chefs, including Claire Smith's Core by Claire Smith. That was fantastic. I had a wonderful lunch there. I went to Santiago Lastro's Cole, which I talked about on my episode 375 as my solo dining experience, if you want to go back and listen to that. I also checked out Thomasina Meyer's Oaxaca, which has several locations in London and features amazing Mexican fare. I also went to Sky Jingel's Spring and had an absolutely lovely lunch there, and she was there and I met her, which was awesome. And I had a dinner at Alexis Gauthier Soho, which is a vegan fine dining restaurant, and he was there and I got to meet him, and that was wonderful. I had lunch with my editor, associate publisher at Phaidon, Amelia Taragni. We went to Urchin Cheng's Bao, which also has several locations in London, and she's in my book, and she also has a book with Phaidon, so we have that in common too. I also hit up Lyle's, Brat, Mountain, Mangle 2, Cadet, which is a wine bar, the River Cafe, which I talked about on my episode 370, if you want to listen to that. I also went to Gunpowder, and I had a lovely dinner at Iceberg Lounge at Park Row with Richard Vines, who is the former chief food critic at Bloomberg. I had some coffee at Borough Market. I met up with Kate Crater there, and also Monmouth and Catalyst for coffee. So all of that was wonderful. And yes, I ate my way through London. I was actually there twice at the end of last year, which is why I was able to hit so many places. But I can't wait to go back because London really has an incredible dining scene and there's more work to be done. But I think I did pretty well on these trips. Also, another personal fun fact. So while I was in London, I also went by the Tate Modern, and my Chef-Wise book was there, and I signed some copies. And I also went to bookstores Waterstones and Foley's, and they had copies of my book, and I signed them there. And I love doing that. It's so fun for me to travel and find my book around the world. So thank you to bookstores and to Phaidon and all the contributors to my book. I'm very proud of our collaboration. Okay, so the cost of my meal at Ikoyi was €340, and part of that is a 12.5% service charge, and also there was a $1 charge for Street Smart, which is an organization raising money to support feeding the homeless. And when I was in London, I actually went to an event with the organization that Richard Vines had invited me to join him at, and a lot of restaurants in London are supporting it, so I was happy to learn about it. And at my meal at Ikoyi, my tea pairing was comped. It would have been €70. I'm very grateful that they took care of that for me. So would I go back? Yes. Website is ikoyilondon.com, and that's IKOYI London.com. And their Instagram is Ikoyi_London, and Jeremy is at Jeremy Chan Ikoyi. So that's the show. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for an extraordinary meal, for being a contributor to my book, to spending time with me. I can't wait to see how your career continues to progress and to come back and visit you in London and maybe see you in other parts of the world as well. Wishing you and your team all the best, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished. It's impressive, and I feel honored to know you. So my guest today has been Jeremy Chan. He's the chef and co-founder of Ikoyi. And as I mentioned, his website is ikoyilondon.com. You can go there to find out all about his restaurant and follow him too. And hopefully you'll get to dine there as well, because it's really special. And you can check out his new book, Ikoyi, and my new book, Chef-Wise, which are available at Phaidon.com and wherever books are sold. You can follow me at Sherry Bayer, at Bayer PR, and at All Industry. My Facebook page is All in the Industry. My websites are BayerPublicRelations.com, SherryBayer.com, and AllInTheIndustry.com. All of our shows are archived at heritageradionetwork.org. We are also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks to my engineer today, Armin. Thanks again to Jeremy and his team. I'm your host and producer, Sherry Bayer. I will be back next week with a new show. I hope you'll tune in then. And thank you, as always, for being part of All in the Industry. Bye. All in the Industry is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
I want to tell you about a new podcast called Amuse News. Publishing multiple days a week, Amuse News is your source for food news, interviews from around the food world, and more. On the show, we'll be engaging with food storytellers, from chefs to advocates to people working in the field, and many more. Find Amuse News wherever you get your podcasts. Amuse News is a destination for everyone who's looking for a new, insightful look into the world of food.